A Bradley just slammed into the forward edge before the opposing defensive lines could even begin to stabilize. Seconds later, a mechanized formation rolled in. Armored carriers followed close, pouring down heavy firepower and tightly synchronized movement. This forced frontline positions to react before they could reorganize. No ground was officially secured, but tactical initiative violently shifted in those opening few minutes. From that exact moment, this battle stopped following anyone's original defensive battle plan and became a brutal chain of split-second decisions dictated by ticking clocks, drone feeds, and incoming artillery. In this type of brutal combat, the immediate goal isn't grabbing land. The absolute objective is shattering enemy reaction times and strictly controlling the battlefield tempo. Let us look at this together. Why push the Bradley up so early? And how did this mechanized thrust completely distort the defender's response from Phase 1? I will break down the tactical force. Ukrainian troops open this phase using a highly coordinated mechanized formation, putting Bradley infantry fighting vehicles on point, keeping armored carriers loaded with troops at a strictly controlled distance. This aggressive structure completely shatters defender. Reaction time. Heavy armor, foot soldiers, and thermal sensors strike as one unit, not staggered waves. Bradleys take point for their heavy armor, advanced optics, and stabilized guns. They accurately shoot on the move and keep forward momentum alive. That 25mm cannon absolutely shreds enemy trenches and light bunkers. It immediately forces Russian defenders off their scopes, killing their firing rhythm. This barrage is not meant to clear dirt. It exists to smash timing and cripple command coordination before any defense stabilizes. High-grade thermal optics let Bradley gunners spot body heat straight through thick smoke and brush. Camouflage means absolutely nothing during first brutal contact. As the heavy armored column pushes, they punch out thermal flares to stop incoming infrared anti-tank missiles from getting a solid lock. These countermeasures drop the hit probability just enough to keep the armor moving forward. Speed matters way more than heavy plating right now. Constant forward motion starves Russian gunners of the time they need to range targets, fix their aim, and relay coordinates down the line. Losing that vital targeting continuity completely neuters their initial defense long before heavier artillery support gets organized across adjacent sectors. Tucked behind the lead tracks, armored carriers keep the infantry safe. This guarantees rapid combat dismounts without exposing soldiers to open ground. We maintain strict spacing between tracks. If they bunch up, they become a fat target for artillery salvos and cascading drone strikes. These controlled combat intervals make sure a single burning vehicle will never stall the whole advance. The true objective of this strike is rhythm, disruption, not just taking dirt. Tactical success gets measured in the enemy's lost response time. The second those Russian units lose their firing cadence, command fractures. Their defense becomes desperately improvised. We know this brief suppression delays return fire by vital minutes, usually forcing immediate enemy relocation. Bradley gunners specifically target enemy observation posts, blinding their early warning network and completely degrading incoming artillery fire. This is crucial. Artillery and drone operators need instant spotting. Even a tiny delay makes them completely useless. When their command network fails, isolated Russian infantry groups fight blindly. That continuous defensive line is totally broken. Psychological terror mounts alongside the physical carnage. Defenders feel total control slip away before casualties even peak. Once sheer tempo and firepower rip tactical control away from the forward lines, massive cracks in the Russian infantry response start showing. Enemy defensive positions totally collapse the minute this sustained firepower and ruthless tempo rip away all control. Units failing to stabilize the line are shoved into sheer panic rather than executing coordinated tactics. Under this relentless pressure, Russian troops start abandoning their dug and fighting positions way earlier than combat doctrine dictates. This retreat is almost never ordered from higher command, but from the brutal realization that holding the line offers zero protection and absolutely no backup. You and I both know what happens next. The defensive network crumbles, turning into frantic individual bids for survival. Deep trenches designed to anchor the front become useless the second trust in collective survival vanishes. By that critical point, the territory might still exist on the map, but tactical command inside those sectors is already bleeding away. Losing control, not the initial body count, triggers the real collapse of this defensive line. Under heavy kinetic pressure, bouncing back is practically impossible. Platoon leaders can't shift their squads fast enough, accelerating this absolute tactical breakdown. Once these troops abandon their trenches, they pick bug-out routes for pure speed, completely ignoring cover. We're seeing infantry jump on dirt bikes, hoping raw speed makes up for zero armored protection. Dismounted elements are sprinting across open fields, cratered asphalt, or bare tree lines, offering zero real camouflage. Ditching the dugout strips away their only hard cover, spiking their casualty risk instantly. From the drone feeds, tracking them against dead terrain is dead simple. Those bikes kick up massive dust and thermal signatures, while dismounted squads still paint clear targets across open kill zones. The second you sprint, your camouflage is gone. There's no terrain out there that hides a moving heat signature. Exposure time is climbing fast. Every single second spent outside a bunker multiplies the odds of lethal contact. Freezing in place won't save them either. Once thermal optics lock on, you stay tracked. A lot of these retreating fighters lack real frontline combat experience, and that completely dictates their panic response. They aren't executing bound and cover fallbacks. Instead, pure survival instinct takes over. Guys are sprinting toward whatever looks familiar, completely ignoring tactically safe staging areas. This herd mentality shatters unit cohesion instantly, even if they still have the numbers. Command structure crumbles. Radio networks turn to static, and sergeants can't punch orders through the chaos. The moment orders drop, a tactical withdrawal turns into an absolute scattered rout. Heavy gear gets dumped. Squads dissolve entirely, leaving guys fighting alone or in desperate packs. We are watching a total command and control failure at the platoon level. Once that breaks mid-firefight, you don't just patch it back together. Trying to rally the troops fails when sheer terror takes over. As the rout drags on, psychological shock actually outpaces kinetic damage. The troops realize staying put is lethal, but running gets them spotted. That paralysis kills decision-making. Holding still feels like a death sentence, but sprinting lights up the thermals. That pressure forces fatal mistakes bunching up, frantic zigzags, and dumping their remaining armor. All these signals confirm their organized combat resistance is dead. Listen up, history proves this. Body counts always spike during the retreat, not the initial contact, because running exposes you to immediate fire. Right about now, the entire battle space transitions from a trench defense into a deadly pursuit. The routed defenders lose all control. Assaulting forces grab total freedom to exploit exposed movement, locking down tempo and picking their targets. Combat momentum firmly belongs to whoever can spot and strike first. This disorganized bug-out creates a flawless kill zone for follow-up strikes, especially for airborne systems designed to hunt moving targets. Ukrainian assault elements immediately launch drone pursuits. The second Russian infantry breaks cover. That sprinting, armorless movement rips open a massive, decisive window of engagement. Ukrainian drone operators are already holding overwatch on the main escape routes, battered highways, open fields, and shredded tree lines. They map these kill zones out beforehand, studying the terrain and analyzing known Russian retreat patterns. You and I might expect an instant strike, but these drones actually stalk their prey, waiting for maximum vulnerable exposure. Bomber-class quadcopters are absolutely brutal in this specific phase. Operators just hover, adjust their vector, and wait for terrified infantry to cluster together. They don't need a precision bullseye. The mission is disruption, since triggering blind panic does more tactical damage than an instant kill. Loitering right above them, the drones completely strip away the enemy's feeling of safety and timing. Once movement is visually confirmed, this pursuit flips from passive recon into aggressive, sustained fire, guided by pilots reacting to the enemy's panic in real time. Dropped munitions run on high explosive fragmentation, meaning operators don't even need a direct kinetic impact to neutralize a target. Shrapnel shreds the open ground, making it insanely lethal against dismounted runners, guys on dirt bikes, or anyone bunched up. Let's look at the raw combat footage. Even near misses stun units, instantly multiplying their exposure. Bleeding guys slow the squad down. Medics rush in to help, accidentally building a massive, juicy target. Under drone optics, That basic survival instinct becomes a fatal tactical liability. FPV operators time their grenade drops for choke points like tight road bends or tree-line exits. In recent frontline clashes, heavy shrapnel wounds caused massive casualties during chaotic tactical retreats. The real danger is not just the bleeding, but the total loss of momentum. Units literally cannot escape the enemy surveillance net. These FPV killer drones aren't random. They strike after grenades to exploit the bleeding and panic. They swoop in fast and hard, hunting down guys who are already wounded, isolated, or desperately regrouping. Enemy pilots ignore rank. They hunt behavior, targeting tight formations, stalled armor, or runners breaking cover. This builds a brutal layered kill zone. Dodging one blast just feeds you to another. Rallying the squad becomes highly visible and deadly in mere seconds. These drones block casualty evacuations entirely. That skyrockets the death toll and breeds absolute panic in the trenches. Just one drone hit forces surviving infantry to scatter wide, opening fresh firing lanes for follow-up strikes. Spotter UAVs and suicide drones completely stop retreating units from ever stabilizing their lines. That non-stop aerial buzzing shatters the mind just as badly as shrapnel. Troops on the ground feel hunted like prey, rapidly destroying their combat morale. Blind terror forces fatal mistakes, like packing into shallow trench lines, ditching heavy gear, or sprinting down obvious roads. Comms go dark. Using radios or even hand signals invites instant detection. Sergeants cannot physically rally their squads because any tight grouping immediately draws incoming fire. The retreat totally collapses. Organized platoons dissolve into terrified guys running for their lives. Casualties stack up without infantry contact, turning the pullback into a meat grinder of exposure. By the time survivors clear the kill box, those units are operationally dead. This tactical collapse shapes the whole sector for future assaults. Command structure shatters, supply lines are completely severed, and the survivors stumble back, exhausted, disorganized, and mentally broken, unable to hold the line against the next wave. So what do you and I make of this drone dominance? It forces Russia to escalate with massive, reckless firepower. Losing their grip on the dirt, Russian command reacts by unleashing absolute hell. They abandon pinpoint defense, dropping broad suppression strikes just to cripple the advancing Ukrainian armor. We're talking heavy massed artillery, massive multiple launch rocket barrages, an incredibly low-altitude attack runs by Su-25 jets. They don't care about accuracy here. They want pure grid saturation to paralyze infantry advances through sheer explosive volume. Heavy rocket artillery blankets massive kill zones with explosive force, pinning Ukrainian assault units down, forcing them to scatter and hide. Meanwhile, Su-25 attack jets scream in low, dumping unguided rockets and 30mm cannons onto suspected Ukrainian trenches. To survive the Ukrainian air defense nets, these jets are forced into extremely low-altitude deck runs. Hugging the dirt beats radar, but drastically spikes their risk against shoulder-fired missiles, machine guns, and even trees. Every single strafing run becomes short, violently aggressive, and highly costly, favoring raw, explosive volume over precision. This brutal firepower surge pins the Ukrainians down and shatters their coordination, but it rapidly bleeds Russian aviation through lost airframes and extreme pilot fatigue. High fuel burn, maintenance nightmares, and tight sortie windows make sustained, low-level airstrikes practically impossible. Keeping up this area fire puts massive, crushing demands on Russian artillery units, especially crews forced to shoot, relocate, and reload while under constant lethal threat. To dodge counter-fire, these massive launchers must constantly displace between temporary firing points. Stick with me here. Every time they move down those dirt roads, those ammo trucks and command vehicles become prime targets. Listen up. Here is how Ukrainian forces exploit that gap, deploying surveillance drones to track enemy artillery live. These spotter birds hunt for thermal blooms and fresh scorch marks. They track transport moving away from recent fire. The second a Russian gun battery gets tagged, coordinates are instantly flashed to strike teams. Kamikaze drones are immediately launched to hammer the big guns, ammo caches, and nearby supply trucks. A single drone hit doesn't even need to vaporize the cannon to do its job. Shredding the shells, killing the engine, or making panicked crews flee completely shatters the firing rhythm and stalls the enemy momentum. When those gun batteries pause to relocate or repair, the heavy bombardment on Ukrainian trenches drops, ripping open a tactical window. Getting hammered repeatedly shreds Russian morale and absolutely tanks their rate of accurate return fire. With enemy artillery falling apart, Ukrainian forces push these drone strikes to seize total battlefield control. Relentless drone impacts throttle the barrage, leaving massive, uneven gaps across the front line. Certain sectors still take brutal shelling, while others go dead silent as battered crews retreat or die. This chaos lets frontline units map the gaps, timing their assaults perfectly between incoming salvos. Heavily armored Bradley fighting vehicles punch forward into the dead zones. They don't need absolute silence to advance, they just need the enemy kill chain to break down. Overhead drones relentlessly hunt any guns trying to set back up, calling in wave after wave. Day after day, this meat grinder bleeds enemy logistics and completely breaks the surviving artillerymen. Throwing more shells changes nothing, because raw firepower simply cannot fix a shattered command structure, especially when drones are hunting you down. The momentum flips hard to whichever military can spot targets, call shots, and strike fastest out there. Operating faster lets armored columns speed right through kill zones before confused enemy gunners can dial in their grid coordinates. With the enemy artillery barrage scattered and falling apart, mechanized Bradley platoons just keep aggressively chewing up more ground. Let's track this shift together. These lethal Bradley fighting vehicles storm deeper into hostile territory, leveraging speed and brutal autocannon fire to carve out the front line. Tearing forward, the crews lock onto vulnerable targets like dismounted infantry, soft transport trucks, and hastily dug firing pits exposed during maneuvers. That 25mm chain gun delivers relentless, rapid fire, pinning the defenders down and denying them any solid footing. The goal is not sitting on dirt today. It is about blasting open assault corridors and crushing blockades along vital axes. By laying down fire on the move, these armored beasts give enemy troops zero reaction time. Wide open fields that normally slaughter foot soldiers become perfectly safe once those threats are vaporized. This aggressive spearhead lets trailing assault forces push forward without taking heavy casualties. These armor units act as violent pathfinders, carving out highways instead of static bunkers. Their blitz speed forces panicked defenders to fight back blindly, long before neighboring squads can coordinate. Pushing deep like this immediately turns the vehicles into massive targets for Russian spotters. The sheer size, engine roar, and dust trails make them way easier to track than infantry. Enemy killer drones, mortar fire, and remaining cruise missiles are rapidly redirected right at the armor. This aggressive response is completely expected and heavily weaponized. By soaking up the heat, the mechanized vanguard draws sniper scopes and artillery away from vulnerable flanks. That gives friendly assault squads, forward observers, and drone pilots total freedom to flank and destroy. Enemy officers face a brutal choice: hit the screaming metal or hunt the silent killers closing in. That hesitation breaks their command loop and freezes up the battlefield. The heavy rigs basically act like giant bullet magnets, shielding the lighter tactical squads from getting wiped. Even when taking direct hits, their heavy reactive armor deflects shrapnel and near misses, keeping them alive during the mission. So what do we make of this? Running Bradleys as attacker and decoy brings massive gains, but the risk is soaring. Staying out in the kill zone lets the enemy adapt. Getting spotted repeatedly lets the enemy actively adjust their drone ambushes. Listen up. They are coordinating launches and prepping engagement kill zones. Bradleys are tough, but they aren't bulletproof against precision strikes. That armor eats light shrapnel, not sustained, zeroed in hammer blows. Once defenders spot them, heavy countermeasures become the immediate priority. Enemy anti-tank missile squads are shifting to choke points, timing their kamikaze drone strikes with lethal precision. This forces a brutal choice: push the momentum, or keep armor alive. Ukrainian commanders must juggle timing, attack routes, and rotations to survive. Rapid rotations, grabbing short pauses in cover, and varying assault routes shatter predictability to drastically lower risk. Electronic warfare units and heavy smoke screens are deploying right now to break enemy tracking chains and blind incoming missiles. Combat logistics are absolutely critical here. Any disabled rig must be yanked out fast before the kill zone claims more steel. Pushed correctly, these Bradleys rip open the front line and manufacture sudden tactical opportunities, but idle them forward too long, and they become massive bullseyes for heavy strikes. The entire assault grinds to a halt as Russian troops paint a Bradley with a laser-guided missile. The mission instantly flips from attacking to pure survival. They are using laser guidance to guarantee a pinpoint armor kill, removing any element of chance from the strike. That initial blast cripples the tracks and pins the rig down, but the fighting vehicle is still alive. A second warhead screams in right behind it, violently tearing through the engine block. This catastrophic hit completely kills mobility. The rig is dead in the dirt, no maneuvering, no falling back. Frozen in place, armor value plummets. The stranded hull is now a giant, smoking reference point for incoming artillery. Inside the troop bay, the shockwave takes a brutal toll. We are tracking killed and wounded personnel. The survivors have to react under extreme combat trauma. Choking smoke, deafening noise, and mangled systems absolutely gut their situational awareness. At this point in the fight, that Bradley is stripped of its combat capability. It goes from assault spearhead to massive tactical liability. Ukrainian ground forces have to instantly rewrite their battle plan. With the rig dead, surviving operators are bailing out while heavy Russian artillery relentlessly pounds the zone. Dumping the rig under active bombardment is a nightmare. That shattered hull isn't stopping shrapnel or concussive blast waves anymore. Supporting Ukrainian infantry immediately abort the advance, shifting straight into a fighting withdrawal. They are throwing down suppressive base of fire and using terrain ridges to screen the fleeing crew. Instead of launching a recovery op into a hot grid, commanders make the call to fall back to shielded defenses. That is pure battlefield discipline and risk management, not a rout. Trying to tow a dead Bradley through an artillery barrage just gets more men killed for zero tactical gain. They execute a phased tactical withdrawal, keeping wide dispersion metrics to avoid taking mass casualties. Squads peel back completely intact, keeping fire discipline and command structure tight. Medical extraction priorities shift on the fly, focusing on bleeding vehicle operators and exposed infantry first. Officers instantly enforce radio silence to cut their electronic signature while sprinting for hard cover. They are deliberately trading time for survival. Slowing down shrinks their exposure window and lets battered units reset behind armor. This tactical pause stops the Russians from rolling right over them during maximum combat chaos. This loss shuts down the assault phase, but it certainly doesn't wipe out their earlier battlefield gains. They mapped the enemy fire, tested the weak points, and forced the Russians to burn expensive ordnance. The firefight ends with Ukrainian troops bleeding, but highly organized, setting the stage for a reassessment, not a collapse. Here is what we need to track together. This bloody withdrawal generates hardcore intelligence that dictates the entire next operational phase. This skirmish is a brutal microcosm of modern combat, where mechanized armor, attack drones, and heavy artillery fuse with aircraft and anti-air batteries to operate as one lethal, interconnected kill web. Battlefield dominance isn't about map lines anymore. It is completely dictated by split-second tactical decisions that control combat tempo and reaction times. Every single maneuver proves that survival relies on threat detection speed, flawless coordination under heavy fire, and pushing the assault without breaking your combat rhythm. The moment situational awareness collapses, even massive firepower just becomes scattered, useless noise. Look at the front. When tactical integration holds, outgunned units bleed massive enemy battalions dry. Taking brutal hits out here isn't defeat, not if those casualties buy critical time, shatter hostile formations, and keep your main strike groups alive. Forget clean breakthroughs. Modern combat is a savage chain of pressure, sudden exposure, and violent retaliation. These meat grinders ruthlessly reward commanders who can adapt to chaos faster than it shifts, violently punishing anyone trapped relying on static battle plans. Hesitate, and you die. Any delay gives hostile sensors time to lock your position and call down devastating artillery fire. The force that accelerates this brutal kill chain dominates the field, even when heavily outnumbered. Lose your combat momentum, and you are trapped reacting. Your choices completely vanish. and deadly risks multiply. Listen closely. The force that dominates the low sky links drone feeds to strike teams and keeps that kill chain firing wins the war. That brutal lesson extends far beyond today's bloody firefight. If my sitrep tonight helped you grasp how savage modern combat actually gets, stop and consider the terrifying impact these weapon systems have outside the combat zone. Grasping how pure military violence is orchestrated, escalated, and ruthlessly sustained is absolutely vital if we actually want peace. Subscribe to Military Force. We will keep dissecting how brutal modern conflicts are truly fought, why the killing escalates, and the terrifying real-world consequences buried beneath those flashy news headlines.